Imagine this. Tea flying everywhere the moment Gray drops a bombshell. Kuro? Married. And get this, to a woman he's never even met. He has absolutely zero memory of a wedding, zero. But his own secretary is swearing up and down that it already happened. Seriously? So, who is this Kuro Hartfield? He's a 19-year-old noble, and he's been governing this super remote land for the last 4 years. But here's the kicker. This lordship is actually a demotion. He was practically shipped off to the middle of nowhere just to be forgotten. And get this, in his past life, he was a clothing pattern maker who died at 25, only to wake up right here in this world. Oh, and it gets worse. This world? It's none other than the Otone game Kasasu, set within the prestigious Jade Kingdom Academy. As one of the game's older side characters, his whole strategy was to keep his head down and stay completely out of the main plot. Honestly, a quiet country life, just tea, work, and zero drama, that suits him perfectly. It's his ideal. Gray, though? She's absolutely thrilled anyone proposed at all, especially considering Kuro's dismal reputation with all the noble ladies. I mean, the ladies literally call him perverted deviant, but get this. This bride isn't even the slightest bit put off. Not one bit. Kuro is completely balking at this whole situation, but Gray just casually waves him off. Nope, it's already settled, she basically says. Then Gray lays it all out, the church certificate, both parents' approval. On paper, folks, Kuro is already married. No turning back. He's starting to resign himself to this whole wife thing, until boom. One specific family name on that document stops him cold. That name, it just itches at his memory, like he's definitely seen it somewhere before. It's nagging at him. Gray, being Gray, starts needling him. So, would you really object to a country bride? Or maybe an older woman, huh? Gray eyes him super suspiciously, and then just asks him point blank, so, do you prefer them younger, then? Kuro denies it hotly, of course, and Gray, with this knowing grin, finally drops the bride's name. You won't believe it. And that name, Valentine? It lands like a stone. Because in this world, trust me, Valentine means something absolutely enormous. His bride is none other than Lady Violet Valentine, the daughter of a hugely powerful ducal house. Wow. And here's the kicker. In the game, Violet is the beautiful villainess herself, the protagonist's main rival in Kasasu. Talk about a twist. Imagine this. Her scripted fate? It's absolutely grim, ending up cut down by an enraged love interest. Talk about a brutal end. Seriously, the game laid out so many terrible fates for Violet, and trust me, none of them were pleasant. We're talking monster attacks, getting expelled from a convent, or even being married off to some crude countryman. Just awful. Honestly, it's like the game's creator had a personal grudge against her, don't you think? And then, suddenly, it hits him. Marrying him is actually one of her doomed endings. Can you believe it? Gray asks what's wrong, but Kuro's mind is miles away, picturing his past life sister celebrating his totally unexpected marriage. So, it's clear, Violet must have challenged the protagonist, lost, and then been married off to him as a form of penance. What a setup. In the game, she was absolutely vicious, wielding her high rank to bully everyone around her. Not exactly charming. Kuro frets that Violet only ever liked boyish types, while Gray can't help but wonder if he's about to be volunteered for something. Kuro figures she'd definitely want a pretty boy like Gray, but Gray, ever the contrarian, insists she might just want Kuro. He thinks, surely she'd pick the third prince, Vermilion Randolph, over a plain man like me, right? Gray snaps him right out of his gloom. Come on, pull yourself together and greet our guests properly. Days later, Gray is absolutely beaming, declaring every single preparation for their guest is utterly flawless. Gray admires his intricate garden pruning, while Kuro, honestly, questions his definition of perfect just as a voice calls from the gate. And there she is. Through the open gate steps Lady Violet Valentine herself, already apologizing for arriving early. She's absolutely stunning, her voice clear as a bell, introducing herself and politely asking for his cooperation. It's the game's villainess, alright, no doubt about it, but here's the thing, her fierce eyes now carry a distinct shadow of sadness. Kuro stands there before Violet Valentine, finally, truly seeing the woman who has become his wife. What a moment. Violet apologizes again for her early arrival and any trouble it caused, offering up tea and cake as a genuine apology. Violet finds the tea delicious and super soothing after her long journey, totally surprising Kuro, who was expecting a harsh scolding. And as she sips so gracefully, Kuro's whole world just starts to crumble. Everything he thought he knew about her? Gone. Seriously, every single move she makes, every refined gesture, every dignified demeanor, it all just screams noble lady. She's the picture of elegance. Get this, not only is her academic performance absolutely top class, but her swordsmanship? It actually rivals any man's. Can you believe it? He just stares, completely stunned. This woman, this villainess everyone talks about, she's got an almost unfair spread of talents, you guys. But here's the kicker. Despite all those formidable skills, Violet eventually challenges the protagonist to a duel, and she suffers defeat. Violet totally catches Kuro's intense gaze, and you can practically hear his brain whirring, wondering if her appearance has subtly, mysteriously changed. So Kuro, with a polite smile, formally introduces himself as the Lord of the House, expressing genuine hope for their future together. How sweet is that? Violet seems a little taken aback for just a moment, but then she politely responds that she's looking forward to their future too. With a soft smile, Violet begins to reintroduce herself, clearly stating her full name and her impressive noble lineage. Kuro almost addresses her as Your Highness, totally reminded of her incredibly high status as his brand new wife. But here's the thing, Violet explains that she has to use Hartfield now because she can no longer claim her former ducal family's name. Oh, the drama. Violet quietly thanks Kuro for his concern, and he reassures her right away that he absolutely won't pry into any of the recent events. I mean, imagine this. Her situation is dire. She's been cast out by her own parents, and she can't even use her family name anymore. Sure, marrying a stranger might beat, death, but trust me, it's still a pretty brutal fate to hand a young girl. Kuro actually murmurs to Gray that it's just too cruel for a 15-year-old, and Gray, bless his heart, quietly agrees. Noticing Violet's silent shock, Kuro, being the sweet guy he is, suggests Gray prepare a bath for her so she can truly relax and take her time. Violet thanks Kuro, a little awkwardly, and he asks her what she would like to do while her bath is being prepared. He's really trying, Later on, Violet is soaking in that bath, contemplating her forced marriage, while Kuro and Gray are actually discussing her comfort. It's quite the contrast. Get this. A separate room has been prepared just for Miss Violet, clearly signaling that their living arrangements are going to be distinct. And as Kuro works diligently at his desk, Violet actually asks if she may enter, and he graciously grants her permission. Okay, imagine this. Kuro is absolutely stunned. Why? Because Violet is standing right there, fresh from her bath, in this delicate nightdress. Talk about a surprise. He's super nervous, asking if she needs anything, totally overwhelmed by her powerful presence in that attire. Can you feel the tension? Then, Violet quietly calls his name, her gaze so direct, you just know she has a very specific purpose in mind. What could it be? She reminds him, very pointedly, about their sudden marriage and how, just today, they officially became husband and wife. The plot thickens, and she doesn't stop there. She continues, letting him know this is their very first night spent together under the same roof. Get ready. With a serious expression that leaves no room for doubt, she declares, tonight is their wedding night. Wow. Now, here's where it gets intense. Violet starts untying her nightgown, her gaze absolutely unwavering as she moves closer to Kuro. He's totally frozen. And then, she boldly announces her intention. She's here to be embraced. Kuro, honestly, is left utterly speechless by her directness. Can you blame him? Kuro's mind is scrambling for an escape route, trust me. He's desperately latching onto all those tired tropes from otome heroines. Heroines, he tells himself, win hearts with charm and inner beauty, never with such open seduction. Oh, Kuro. Rivals, on the other hand, often get drawn with a notably fuller figure, right? He's really grasping at straws here. But let's be real. This is all just a desperate mental detour, anything to avoid the reality of the woman standing half-dressed right in front of him. Because Violet is still there, in her delicate lingerie, her presence an undeniable, direct challenge he can't ignore. And just like that, his inner monologue completely collapses the moment he actually looks at Violet in just her underwear. The jig is up. There's no dodging it now, is there? This is their wedding night and, trust me, she means it. Then, she presses herself against him, her body soft and close, whispering his name. The intensity is insane. He's totally spiraling, comparing all those imaginary chest designs against the very real Violet in his arms. Can he even handle this? And after all that wild overthinking, he finally lands on one, very simple, conclusion. He loves them all. Huh. Kuro, of course, immediately backpedals, begging her to calm down and choose her words far more carefully. Good luck with that. He tries to insist. Talk first, dress first. But Violet quickly reminds him exactly what tonight truly is. What's going to happen next? Oh, and she presses closer, practically daring him to explain how he plans to just leave her standing there like that. He does grant that they're married, but she quickly counters, saying there's absolutely no harm in him just taking a peek, right? As Violet closes in even more, she straight up offers to let him touch her, and trust me, Kuro's mind immediately snaps to Gray's reaction. Yikes. And just like that, Violet pulls Kuro right down onto the bed, practically commanding him to hurry up. Now, she's positioning herself right over Kuro, her gaze locked onto him as they lie there on the bed. What's going through his mind? He's weighing his predicament, wondering, did I really not want this? But then he catches it, a faint trembling from her. You find me unattractive too? She asks, and suddenly, he sees past all that boldness, right down to the fear underneath. She can't help but wonder if maybe men only want those delicate girls, you know, the ones who need protecting and always smile so sweetly. His thoughts snag on the game's charming girl, specifically, petite, gentle, and a total whiz at alchemy. And that was the protagonist, remember? A commoner who won absolutely everyone over with her plain, but incredibly stubborn, kindness. He's trying to map Violet onto the game's different routes, frantically searching for where her story took a different turn. It has to be. The prince she loved must have chosen the protagonist instead, pushing Violet completely away. As a grown noble, Violet tells herself she understands exactly what a wedding night demands from her. Violet looks up at Kuro, her gaze absolutely firm, as she declares her readiness for their wedding night. Wow. For her, this is pure duty, a noble offering her purity because, well, that's just what her role requires. But here's the thing, Kuro refuses to be swept along by a woman who's only moving out of obligation and old, ingrained lessons. He looks her dead in the eye and tells her straight up, he hates it when she acts purely out of duty. And just like that, a harsh memory flashes through Violet's mind, a man's furious command to never show her face again. Ouch! Violet's mind replays the most painful rejection, those last, heartbreaking words from the one she truly loved. She'd fought so hard to become strong and worthy, swallowing the sting of being disliked, yet part of her just screams that the whole demand is utterly unfair. Ugh, another brutal memory just crashes in. A powerful man on a throne, his voice ice cold, declares that even ending her would be a crime. Can you believe that? And get this, the night her engagement shattered, her own father didn't just reject her, he said something far, far worse. Her family completely exiled her, practically ordering her to marry some country noble and just be useful. Oh, and her new husband's name? Kuro Hartfield. But as she traveled, some seriously unsettling rumors started swirling about Kuro, the Hartfield Baron's third son. Apparently, the word on the street was he'd actually dropped out of Azalea Academy to go rule some super remote, isolated backwater. Huh, imagine this. Arrogant, jealous, violent, domineering, totally drowning in lust and vanity. Yep, that was his reputation. Not exactly Prince Charming, right? Not a single kind word to be found about him anywhere, but here's the kicker. She actually wonders if maybe, just maybe, that makes him perfect for her. Because for someone in her kind of impossible predicament, a guy like Kuro might actually be the ideal match. As she endured the long journey, she tried to find any meaning in this whole marriage, but honestly, she found absolutely none. Finally, she arrives at her new home, and guess who's waiting? Her new husband, Kuro, and his young secretary, Gray. Kuro and Gray are totally caught off guard by her early arrival and surprise. They're actually way warmer in person than any rumor ever suggested. Kuro, still tidying up, apologizes for the mess, and here's the shocker. It turns out he and Gray are the ones handling all the household duties. And then it hits her. This vast, ancestral mansion, this huge place, only holds Kuro and one young secretary. That's it. A man and a woman, all alone in this grand, isolated estate? Yeah, the sheer impropriety of it definitely rattles her. But with her own exile hanging over her head, Violet bites her tongue and swallows that objection before it even reaches her lips. And just like that, her mind flashes back to that devastating command. Never appear before us again, her every effort dismissed as nothing but a nuisance. Ouch! She has to remind herself, okay, Violet, you wear the Heartfield name now, because her own title? It's been completely stripped away. But then Kuro gives her this really kind smile, telling her she can share all the details whenever she feels more comfortable. See? Not so bad. As she watches him, she has to admit, he looks absolutely nothing like the menace those wild rumors painted him to be. Still, she gives herself a firm warning. Men can be beasts, she thinks, and resolves to stay totally on guard. So, Kuro offers to have Gray get a bath ready for Violet, but he warns her it might be a little cramped. Can you imagine? And just like that, Violet's mind goes straight to a super uncomfortable image, Kuro, approaching her while she's in the bath. Oh. She's seriously still trying to warn herself about him, terrified he'll try something indecent while she's trying to purify herself. Talk about awkward. Even with all that turmoil swirling inside her, Violet actually accepts the offer, managing to sound grateful. What a pro. But don't think she's a pushover. She resolves to keep her dignity intact, vowing to firmly rebuke Kuro if he tries anything improper. Go, Violet. She can't help but turn those rumors over in her mind. Is her new husband really the perverted deviant everyone warned her about? This is intense. As she's bathing, Violet's thinking about all the implications of this new marriage, because, trust me, she really wants her first experience to be proper. There she is, waiting alone in this super spacious bath, just reflecting on this wild, unexpected life she's suddenly living. She sinks right into that roomy bath, thanking Gray for the clean towel. And get this, so much for Kuro's cramped comment, right? Big surprise. Rising from the water, she actually braces herself, because surely he'll come to her room after his own bath, won't he? The anticipation. Amber once told her the golden rule: a husband makes the first move, and a wife simply receives his desire. Simple, right? Or is it? So, steeling herself, she slips into the special underwear Amber prepared specifically for her coming of age. This is a big moment. As time slowly ticks by, Violet's determination just solidifies, making her totally ready to face whatever awaits her. You go, girl. In the great bed, she waits and wonders, is he just soaking for a long time, or is he actually expecting her to come to him? And then, her classmate's advice echoes in her mind. If a man keeps you waiting, you should totally take the initiative yourself. What would you do? Suddenly, a raw memory surfaces. A man, gently turning her down, saying he simply didn't feel that way. Ouch! Then, bam, Kuro is suddenly right there, his hands gently cupping her face, his gaze super intense as he starts to speak. What on earth is he going to say? Kuro actually calls her name as he cups her face, and his sudden closeness? Oh my gosh, it makes her heart absolutely pound. Violet, naturally, quickly covers her face, but Kuro insists. He insists she look directly into his eyes. Violet is completely baffled, like, what could possibly be so important about Kuro's eyes right now? The suspense is killing us. And then, she finally catches it. His eyes are this striking emerald, a shade so captivating, so oddly unfamiliar to her. For the very first time, she truly sees his eyes, clear and strange, all at once, and it's a moment you won't forget. Kuro tells her point blank that she made a fool of herself, and then, he just drags her right back to that fateful day at the academy. Suddenly, a memory flashes into view. It's Violet, furiously confronting someone, desperately protecting a girl from Prince for millions advances. We see Violet scolding a girl, right? For completely ignoring the prince's words and being way too harsh on someone he favored. And then, after the academy ball, can you believe it? Violet was actually struck by the prince and his companions, then challenged to a duel. She had all these attendants, he says, but no real friends, completely, utterly alone in that whole academy. He recounts the day she told someone, "Don't get too familiar," and you can practically see her flinch right there. His incredibly easy grasp of her entire past leaves her absolutely scrambling to keep her composure, trust me. To everyone else, she was just the haughty duchess, borrowing the prince's power and judging everyone purely by rank. And then, he actually names the absolutely cruel label they all pinned on her, Amethyst Paper-Thin Machine. He gently hushes her protests, urging her, "Hey, just listen for once, okay?" So calm and completely unhurried, he insists that she hear him all the way out, no interruptions. Leaning in close, he tells her something profound. Acting for others so often means you're sacrificing yourself. And here's the kicker. Being rejected after all that sacrifice, he adds, cuts so much deeper, doesn't it? He says, please, don't disown all that incredible effort you make for someone you genuinely care about. Kuro's words just resonate so deeply with Violet, literally dissolving all these long-held emotions in her heart. She reflects on her past as a duke's daughter, just wishing, for someone to finally acknowledge her. Her sheer strength of will, he gently tells her, is exactly what makes her so incredibly beautiful. He softly touches her face, and then he tells her, you need to stop passing such incredibly harsh judgment on yourself. And finally, she admits it. She was reckless. She was desperate to prove she wasn't truly alone. After being rejected by the prince, she confesses that all she ever really wanted was just someone to stay right by her side. And Kuro, so gently, cups her face as she whispers a heartfelt thank you for his totally unexpected kindness. Then, he brushes her hair aside, offering his continued support if she ever needs his help again. Violet totally blushes, quickly asking Kuro to cover up, while he, on the other hand, wonders just how far her reputation has truly spread. She pulls her clothes tight, reminding him, hey, our first night together is still very much underway, But then, Kuro declares he won't be holding her, leaving Violet completely stunned by the sudden, unexpected turn of events. Kuro promises they'll have plenty of time as a couple, urging her not to rush things, trust him. And finally, a wave of pure relief washes over her after that long, incredibly unguarded conversation. He leans in close and teasingly calls the lack of any further progress just a little bit disappointing. Can you believe it? Violet totally erupts in a flustered panic as Kuro just laughs at her visible, intense embarrassment. He admits he actually meant to push things further, but then, he decided to hold back, just for now. The couple finally decides it's time to get dressed after their incredibly long, eventful night. Violet watches the sun rise, just beautifully over their new home, replaying every single moment of the morning. But wait, a hidden watcher offers a cynical little congratulations on the whole situation. What's going on here? Kuro immediately rounds on the intruder, plainly irritated by this mocking, totally uninvited presence. The stranger jeers at Kuro's inaction, branding his choices as absolutely spineless and completely useless. Violet, he notes, had totally dropped off from sheer exhaustion, and trust me, their first night stayed perfectly chaste. Kuro gently carries the sleeping Violet to her room, noting, with a smile, that her sleep talk is still just so incredibly cute. Violet mumbles in her sleep, actually apologizing to Amber for her long absence from a proper bed. And finally, Gray watches over the pair, expressing relief that Kuro finally seems rested. And get this, Gray's actually praising Kuro for his kindness toward Violet, saying that's truly all that matters. But then, BM. Violet suddenly wakes up, totally frantic, apologizing to the empty room for sleeping in. And just like that, Violet gives Kuro this shy, sweet smile, officially kicking off their new day. Kuro, ever so gentle, returns her greeting, holding her gaze with this steady, heartwarming smile of his. Violet makes sure to thank Gray for the super relaxing bath, saying it finally washed away all her deep fatigue. And of course, Gray can't help but tease the couple, totally amused by how little progress they've actually made. But look at them. Violet and Kuro stand side by side, truly ready to face the day as a genuine couple. Gray notices something really interesting. Violet's expression looks remarkably brighter than it did just yesterday. Violet tries so hard to hide her reaction, but Gray just casually links her brighter mood to their little chat last night. The memory of their private moment comes flooding back, and she admits it's strange, but honestly, not bad at all. But oh my gosh, that memory of a simple forehead kiss sends Violet into this intense, flustered spiral of total embarrassment. And Kuro? He's scrambling to defend himself as Gray, of course, brands his behavior suspiciously perverted. Gray even gives a mocking round of applause, because, honestly, why hide all that newlywed bliss, right? Violet finishes her meal, and she politely thanks Kuro for the simple, kind flavors she enjoyed so much. Kuro just smiles, and in his gentle way, he presses her for more details about exactly what she likes. But then, the atmosphere shifts instantly as Gray interrupts their quiet morning with a serious, unblinking stare. Suddenly, the mood just drops as Gray cuts in with this super serious, unblinking stare. And, just like that, Gray drops all the teasing, warning them he has a grave matter to discuss with the couple. Then, Gray asks to call Violet mother, and you guys, the newlyweds nearly choke. Violet just sputters, completely speechless, while Gray calmly owns how totally out of nowhere that request is. And just like that, Kuro steps right in to untangle this suddenly tangled family web for our completely stunned couple. You see, for Kuro, Gray isn't just his trusted secretary. He's truly, deeply, his own child. Suddenly, the memory flashes back to their very first meeting in that cold, echoing estate. He'd found a boy who was just, hollow enslaved, knowing nothing but how to obey orders. Kuro gave that boy the Hartfield name, and then, slowly, he coaxed him back to life. Gray fully acknowledges the public scrutiny that his adoption into a noble house definitely stirred up. So, by adopting Gray, Violet suddenly grasps that she's becoming mother to her husband's ward. Gray looks up at Violet, holding his breath, waiting for her reaction to his sudden, bold request. And then, Violet leans in, warmly inviting the boy to address her with the title of mother. You guys, Gray stammers, barely able to hold the incredible weight of this brand new name. Watching this unfold, Kuro can't help but notice the sheer nobility that radiates off his wife so effortlessly. Violet is just radiating with pride, her eyes absolutely sparkling as she accepts this brand new responsibility. Violet gently places her hands on Gray's shoulders, opening up this incredible discussion even further. She urges Gray to truly embrace their new familial bond with complete and total sincerity. Violet nearly loses her composure right then and there, barely managing to keep her excitement in check. And then, Gray finally whispers the new name, solidifying this incredible connection between them forever. Violet pulls Gray into a super tight embrace, completely consumed by her beautiful, newfound maternal joy. Violet muses over her husband, wondering, is he a detached noble or just a hopelessly charming airhead? She admits she was way too rigid before and makes a vow to soften her ways. But here's the thing, Kuro gently corrects her, reminding her that not every demand deserves to be accepted without question. And get this, she declares right then and there that she'll become a splendid mother, ready to raise Gray into absolute greatness. You guys, Gray just weeps with joy as Violet wholeheartedly embraces her new role with such genuine, heartfelt warmth. It's truly sweet. Meanwhile, Kuro watches all of this unfold, and you can almost see the doubt lingering in his eyes. He's wondering, should he really dig a little deeper here? But for now, he decides to keep their public aliases intact, letting Violet's wonderful maternal side just keep blooming and growing. And to keep the peace, Kuro promises to show Violet all around the estate grounds later that very same afternoon. Of course, Violet asks about their plans, but Kuro just brushes her off with talk of some urgent, top-secret business. Typical, right? But wait, Violet insists on joining them, absolutely determined to uncover the deep secrets of her husband's mysterious work. She's not backing down, and you know what happens next. Gray totally scolds Kuro for folding so easily, while Kuro just clutches his head in utter defeat. Violet tries to explain what she thinks are the duties of a lord, but Kuro gives her a serious look, warning her to prepare herself. He drops the whole light-hearted act and warns her straight up, trust him, his real work is anything but graceful. So, imagine this. Violet just stares in utter disbelief at the sight unfolding before her eyes, a noble, doing actual manual labor. Can you believe it? There they are, Kuro and Gray, working the soil, with a rather conspicuous bucket of fertilizer sitting right nearby. Violet cautiously approaches them, and you can just hear her questioning the nature of this grueling, messy task. Kuro wipes the sweat from his brow, and you can tell he's just dismissing her surprise as, well, just a local necessity. He wipes his brow again and totally shrugs off her shock. For them, out here, this is literally just the job, plain and simple. You see, he actually has to spread the fertilizer and till the soil with his own 2 hands. No fancy servants for this lord. But then, the pungent odor of that fertilizer hits Violet and, oh my goodness, she practically collapses. Kuro, of course, rushes right to her side as she reels from that absolutely overwhelming stench. And what does he do? Grinning, he immediately launches into a full-on explanation of the virtues of their amazing organic manure blend. So, Kuro quickly sends a still reeling Violet off to the shade, while he just keeps right on with his incredibly important work. Kuro, ever the watchful one, tells Violet to take it easy. But she quickly shoots back, insisting he cut out the teasing. Trying to lighten the mood, Kuro offers Violet some fresh produce right from their garden. Will it work? Her noble upbringing certainly didn't prepare her for this. But here's the thing, all this hard labor is actually bringing her a strange, new kind of joy. Then, suddenly, a loud clatter. Kuro's had an accident. He spilled that whole bucket of fertilizer everywhere. Violet, trying to be supportive, attempts to compliment his hard work. But trust me, That pungent aroma is just too much, forcing her to recoil. Kuro just begs her to stop reading his mind. You can practically see him wrestling with his own embarrassment right there. He admits he really needs more practice, and Violet? She just retreats to the shade, totally overwhelmed by it all. Later on, Kuro guides Violet through the beautiful estate, even offering to show her around the town of Shiki. What will they find there? Violet just marvels at the grand, imposing church. You know, the one that used to be the absolute heart of this whole community. Shiki, he explains, is actually a refuge, a safe haven for everyone who's been cast out of the capital. Violet pushes open those heavy church doors, suggesting they meet whoever's inside first. What a bold move. They step into the sanctuary, and immediately, their eyes catch a hooded figure, lurking ominously in the deep shadows of the nave. Suddenly, the figure leaps. They launch a brutal aerial strike, aiming it directly at Kuro. Talk about an unwelcome greeting. But Kuro? He snatches the attacker right out of the air. And in that moment, he recognizes them. It's the very person who betrayed him. The attacker flips away, landing so gracefully, all while taunting Kuro about his impressive evasive reflexes. Seriously, talk about confidence. The woman names herself Cyan, and get this, she immediately threatens Kuro with divine punishment. Wow. Then, Cyan shifts her focus to Gray, showering him with all these hollow compliments and pleasantries. What's she up to now? Violet just gapes at this whole spectacle, totally baffled that a divine messenger would lead with such outright violence. Kuro, clearly fed up, demands to know why she's hurling the word traitor at him. He wants answers. Violet stands there, frozen in the heavy silence, completely lost as this confrontation just escalates even further. What's going to happen next? Get this. Cyan swears her accusation is completely literal, and, honestly, everyone just reels at that wild declaration. Violet's mind races. What kind of sin could possibly be staining his past, as Cyan is already winding up for another strike? Suddenly, a familiar sister points an accusing finger right at Kuro, branding his past as nothing less than a great sin. Kuro? He's just standing there, absolutely lost in the sanctuary, completely floored by this sudden, intense verbal assault. She just mocks his confusion, then cuts him off, ordering him to stop with the nervous laughter. And then, get this, she starts reeling off his crimes, flat out accusing him of abandoning his family for a brand new life. He's totally trapped now, caught in her emotional storm as she openly pines for her father. But here's the thing, his dry attempts to defuse the situation just pour fuel right onto her already volatile temper. She finally names herself Cyan Sears, and then, without missing a beat, promptly dumps all the church's affairs right onto their laps. Violet, ever the reliable one, just takes on this sudden duty, introducing herself to this absolute whirlwind of a newcomer. Cyan actually seizes Violet's hands and, get this, slaps the most bizarre nickname onto our bewildered noblewoman. Before Violet can even react, Cyan pulls her into a super tight embrace, then vanishes in a flash to finish her errands. Just like that, our whirlwind visitor departs as quickly as she arrived, leaving the entire sanctuary in a stunned silence. Violet turns to Kuro, looking concerned, and asks him if something is, well, wrong after that whole chaotic encounter. She muses aloud, church doctrine would never allow an outfit like the one our visitor was wearing. And, trust me, the dangerously high slit of that dress is definitely resurfacing in Kuro's memory right now. Violet clutches Kuro, insisting she saw absolutely nothing during that brief, very revealing moment. Nope, nothing at all. Kuro, ever observant, points out that her frantic defensiveness is actually completely unnecessary in this situation. But she snaps back that it's totally different for her. She's already used to seeing that sight. And of course, a bystander just fans himself, openly mocking their little spat as nothing more than a lover's quarrel. Alright, Kuro pulls himself together, and you know what he says? Let's keep this domain tour moving. But just as they're having a moment, BM, a super sinister, hooded figure just slithers out of the shadows, totally shattering their peace. And this figure? Oh, they drift closer, almost floating, offering these totally cryptic congratulations on the marriage. What is that about? Kuro immediately clocks him, naming him Orchid, apparently a local with a serious taste for dark magic. Yikes. Then, get this, Orchid actually grabs Kuro's hand, examining an old injury from his days working in the fields. Talk about personal. Before you can blink, a man named Ivory just shoulders his way in, practically seizing control of the wound like it's his personal project. Ivory proudly declares himself the local doctor, and trust me, he's just itching to examine any injury he can get his hands on. And just when you think it can't get crazier, a guy named Kark just barges right up, openly flirting with Violet and actually suggesting they share her. Can you believe the nerve? Kuro, ever protective, just swats Kark's advances aside, dismissing him as nothing more than a fool with a serious wandering eye. Then a girl named Apricot just drifts in, purring dramatic riddles about welcoming the darkness. Oh, the drama. Kuro just nods towards a massive, metal-clad figure, explaining that this local favorite is, of course, called Robo. But here's the twist. Violet actually softens when she learns that a shy soul named Blonde is hiding inside that intimidating armor. And just like that, this whole eccentric group has Kuro and Violet totally cornered, practically begging for their attention with desperate pleas. It's a lot. Violet, poor thing, just sits dazed on the sofa, completely drained by this relentless parade of bizarre visitors. You can practically feel her exhaustion. She slowly, so slowly, lifts her tea to her lips, just desperately seeking one tiny moment of quiet refuge. But nope. An unseen hand pops up, offering her another cup, pushing that liquid right into her personal space. No rest for the weary. Kuro, noticing her distress, quickly pulls his attention back to the absolute chaos that's still unfolding around them. Next, they examine this super strange book, a gift from the visitors, its cover completely obscured by a thick layer of paint. What could it be? Kuro finally cracks that strange gifted book open and totally freezes. Turns out, it's explicit material for newlyweds. Oh, my goodness. And his glare? Oh, it turns absolutely murderous as he swears to settle the score with that utterly shameless gift giver. You do not want to be on his bad side. Oh, Violet just sighs, doesn't she? Another day, another parade of oddities, and she just totally rolls with the strangeness. But quick as a flash, Kuro totally shifts gears, tossing on an apron to whip up dinner and reclaim their perfectly normal evening routine. You know, Violet can't help but wonder, is it just them? Because it seems like nobody else in the entire territory can actually cook. And Kuro confirms it. Yep, it's just the two of them, holding down the fort and running this whole kitchen by themselves. So, Kuro suggests keeping it simple tonight, preparing a light meal just to spare Violet any more fatigue after a long day. But here's the thing, Violet just has to admit it. This land of Shiki? It still feels genuinely, undeniably strange to her. Kuro, bless his heart, just can't quite grasp it. He honestly asks her what she means, completely unsure what exactly she finds so odd. She grants him that the villagers are definitely one of a kind, but trust her, she's not about to bend herself into a pretzel just to fit in. And get this, literally everyone they pass by, she notices, just insists on congratulating them on their marriage. Talk about a public display. Imagine that. This kind of open recognition feels totally surreal to her, especially after the quiet, guarded life she's always led. Oh, and she can't resist playfully poking at his skills as a lord, absolutely refusing to let him play the stoic, serious type. But he sees it, doesn't he? He catches that old sorrow flickering in her eyes, a sign that the past is starting to creep back in. She can't help but wonder, could this strange new land really be enough to finally quiet those persistent echoes of her past? And you know what? She realizes that healing those old wounds? It's going to take way more time than she ever initially expected. But then, a soft smile graces her lips, and she silently, optimistically wishes for future happiness right here in this territory. Can you believe it? 3 whole weeks have already slipped away since Violet first arrived in this quiet, charmingly rural corner. Adjusting to this country life? Yeah, it's proving a little tough, but thankfully, Kuro and Gray are her steady, reliable anchors. She's still totally baffled by the local customs, and honestly, Gray? He remains her absolute biggest mystery of all. And then, Gray just unleashes this incredible display of raw magical potential, wielding every single elemental affinity with absolute ease. It makes Violet remember the academy, you know? Those super rigid social barriers where noble status pretty much dictated every single connection. Suddenly, those rigid social walls of the academy are back, where rank pretty much dictated every single bond. And she just can't help but wonder, could her own heavy history actually prevent her from ever truly being Gray's mother? But then Gray, he channels this incredible surge of raw magic, clearing that overgrown field in an absolute instant. Violet watches the young boy, and her mind just can't help but drift back to the heavy burdens of her own past. Then, out of nowhere, Gray asks her a surprising question. Does their life together, weigh on her at all? And get this, he admits that being chosen as Violet's child is actually the greatest joy he's ever known. But she just has to ask, why would he ever accept someone like her as a mother? Gray explains that Kuro never once discriminated against them, and get this, he even gave them a name of their very own. And the villagers? They're constantly trading stories of Kuro's incredible kindness, which is so unlike the previous lord, trust me. Violet notes that for all his youth, this domain truly gives Kuro a deep, deep respect. She admits his maturity sometimes unnerves her. Honestly, it's like he sees straight through her every time. Kuro interrupts her thoughts right then, asking if she intends to join him out in the fields today. Kuro reaches out and, so gently, he places a straw hat right onto Violet's head, inviting her to step outside. He encourages Violet to step out of the shade and join him there, basking in the sun. Violet smiles, and she realizes she truly wants to learn so much more about the man who anchors her entire life. She watches Kuro lead the way to the fields, and she's envisioning a whole new life, walking right there beside him. But then, a dark voice from her past slices right through the moment, whispering, "Don't get comfortable." And then a dark figure delivers that old command again, "Do not get carried away." Violet freezes instantly as a sudden, unnatural chill settles deep, deep within her very core. She owns the warning, fully aware that the shadow of her old life still lingers so incredibly close. And then Violet sees it, a grim messenger whose very presence just shatters the peace of their everyday lives. The messenger says nothing, but trust me, its silence speaks volumes, leaving Violet to ponder what defying fate might truly cost her. That chilling dark voice echoes again, reminding her with a sinister whisper that this path, this very moment, was always promised to arrive. And just like that, her father's cold indifference resurfaces, a stark reminder that, to him, her entire existence is just unreasonable. But she's resolved, isn't she? Violet vows to protect her new life, absolutely refusing to let any trouble touch Kuro. She stands firm, totally unyielding in her decision, determined to completely ignore those lingering ghosts of her past. Then Kuro calls to her, and Violet, she forces a smile, burying all that turmoil deep down just to join him. But hold on, Kuro stops dead in his tracks, his gaze locking onto Violet with an intensity that's sharp, almost probing. Violet quickly deflects, saying she's just admiring the beautiful, peaceful scenery around them, but is that really it? Kuro, he presses on, asking from across the path if she's feeling unwell, and you can practically feel the tension. She blames the hat's shadow for her tired look, brushing his worry aside like it's nothing, but we know better, right? With that tension broken for just a moment, they resume their walk, heading together toward those distant fields. But then, a sudden cry just shatters the peace, as Gray rushes toward them, clearly holding urgent news. He points toward the fields, and oh wow, you can see strange, crushing marks scarring the crops, looking just like a beast's trail. Violet immediately asks, should they focus their defense on the town to make sure everyone is safe? Kuro warns them, these unknown monster tracks? They mean real danger, confirming a serious threat is now here. So Kuro orders everyone to stand guard while he scouts the perimeter, searching for this unseen intruder. But Violet, she insists on going with Kuro, absolutely refusing to let him face this danger all by himself. She asserts her belief, nobles have a duty, a sacred duty, to protect their people from any encroaching threats. And now, the mission to subjugate these mysterious monsters looms ahead, deep within that dense, dark forest. So Kuro, with a hint of a smile, asks her, are these deadly monster hunts just a regular Tuesday for a local lord like her? Violet, ever practical, points out all the mud left by the rain, subtly shifting their conversation to how they're going to keep their footing. But Kuro, he's not letting it go, pushing her a little further to ask about her actual combat experience out here in the wild. And she totally dodges that question, trust me, instead bringing up those academy drills that were only meant to mimic real battle. She even describes these staged training scenes, where actors just fall and embrace each other during the mock battles. Then, she honestly admits this rough terrain is absolutely beating her, worried she's just going to slow him down. Hey, Kuro tells her, waving off her worries, that's exactly what partners are for, right? To cover each other's weaknesses. So Violet, she's navigating this incredibly difficult terrain, her focus completely on keeping her balance as they push deeper. Kuro, meanwhile, watches her every move, totally aware that this path ahead is just teeming with hidden dangers. And just as you'd expect, Violet stumbles, but Kuro, quick as a flash, catches her before she falls, pulling her tightly to his side. She quickly apologizes for her clumsiness, admitting she totally owes him for those lightning-fast reflexes. Kuro just shakes his head, breathing a sigh of relief that she's completely unharmed, despite this treacherous ground. She can feel his strength, and she just can't help but notice how rare a touch this is between them since their wedding. Suddenly, Violet stiffens and hisses at Kuro to freeze, because a really strange noise is carrying right through those trees. She quickly points towards the trees, identifying that distinct, unmistakable sound of splashing water nearby. "That's way too loud for just a puddle," Kuro murmurs, his eyes intently scanning the tree line. Both of them are scanning this dense forest, wondering, wait, is there even a river in these woods? Violet quickly urges Kuro, "Let's retreat to town and get some reinforcements before we face whatever unknown threat this is." But then, a sudden, booming monster roar absolutely shakes through the woods, immediately followed by a woman's distinct voice. And just like that, Violet realizes they have no time for reinforcements, immediately beginning to cast a concealment spell. Okay, so Kuro quickly conjures up some magical barriers, right? While Violet, ever the pro, totally masks their scent and presence. They're trying to disappear from whatever's coming their way. But then, a mysterious mist starts swirling up and Kuro, with that sharp intuition of his, senses someone might be in serious trouble right in the clearing. So, they just dash towards the sound, and what do they see? A shadow, struggling, absolutely surrounded by a group of super aggressive monsters. Violet is instantly ready, her blade flashing as she barks orders at Kuro, "Stay low. Clear my path." You know she means business. But then, the mist finally clears and oh my gosh, what's revealed is a woman, surrounded by these creepy wolf-like creatures, just preening herself with the most bizarre vanity you've ever seen. And get this. This woman is actually praising her own beauty to these beasts, while her entire pack just waits patiently for her command. Kuro and Violet totally freeze in the bushes because this woman is striking poses and, get this, actually demanding their appraisal. Violet and Kuro are watching from the brush, absolutely stunned to realize they've stumbled upon a woman, just bathing, in a spring teeming with monsters. And here's the thing, this stranger strikes another pose, totally shamelessly praising her own figure and, you guessed it, calling herself an absolute masterpiece. She's just reveling in her solitude, completely oblivious, declaring this remote spring the absolute perfect stage to polish her beauty. Kuro, bless his practical heart, just cannot fathom these theatrics. She's putting on a whole performance, while literally ringed by hungry wolves. Can you even imagine? But then a jolt of recognition suddenly hits him, like he knows her, even though he just can't quite place where they've met before. Then, out of nowhere, the woman actually demands they stop hiding, inviting them to admire her body with this totally newfound, unapologetic confidence. Violet, with a jolt, realizes their stealth spell has completely failed. They've been made. And by a total eccentric, no less. The woman then claims her wolf pack actually shares her artistic passion, and then, get this, she calls for them to perform. So, Violet just drops their concealment magic, and they have no choice but to step right out from the shadows and into the clearing. And the woman? She just grins, absolutely certain her unexpected guests have come all this way just to admire her art. Violet tries to regain control of the conversation, bless her heart, but the stranger? She is completely, utterly unbothered by her nudity. Violet, trying her best, asks if the woman feels any shame, but get this, the stranger just completely dismisses the very concept of embarrassment. The woman just waves them off like it's nothing. Because, to her, her figure is an absolute masterpiece that simply needs no covering whatsoever. Okay, but get this, she totally just comes right out and asks if our two travelers are, together. Talk about bold. And Violet? Her calm facade completely shatters. She's absolutely bristling at these super invasive questions. But the woman just keeps going, completely relentless, actually insisting that love is the only thing she needs to cover her. Just as Violet's about to react, Kuro grabs her, desperately trying to calm down this whole, increasingly bizarre situation. So Kuro steps forward, trying to be the adult in the room, offering a formal introduction to hopefully get things back on track. And then, finally, she reveals her identity to them. She's the actual lord of the land. And gives them her name. But the moment that name, Schwartz, hits Kuro, he goes completely rigid. Because that's the person he's been hunting for. Schwartz. The name itself pulls a really specific memory right up from his past life. Suddenly, it all clicks. This woman, right here, is a game character, and her every single choice could decide who lives or dies. And get this, she labels him as a lethal love interest. So, is this meeting about to spell total doom for Kuro?